we have tonight Mike Taylor here. And Mike, let me just start with talking a little bit about your bio because I thought that was so interesting. You're the curator of herps, birds, and others at the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. You've been there for 9 years and worked at White Oak Conservation Center for 30 years prior to that. And you've worked with a large variety of animals, but your emphasis has been on birds. I love that. So you must be a big birder.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I want to know more about that eventually too. Um, but also, just to go into the program description to give everybody an idea of what we'll be talking about here. Every year, millions of our favorite songbirds make their twice-a-year migration under cover of darkness, using the moon and stars for migration. Unfortunately, artificial lighting on buildings attracts the birds to it like moths to a flame. These birds end up aimlessly circling the building until they collapse or, even worse, crash into the windows. By turning out our lights, we can remove a major source of mortality from a population already threatened by climate change and other issues. So, Lights Out Northeast Florida is a partnership between the Jacksonville Zoo and the Duval Audubon Society and the St. John's Audubon Society. That is a part of a growing number of Lights Out initiatives that you were just talking about across the country to encourage homeowners and commercial building managers to turn out their lights at night to ensure safe passage on birds' migration. So tonight, that's what we're going to learn about and what we can do to help.
So, as Lisa said, this is a cooperative endeavor between the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens, St. John's County Audubon, and Duval Audubon Society. How this started was my director, Tony Vecchio, got some kind of information about Lights Out at some other institution or a zoo that was participating in it. So he approached me and one of the Jacksonville Zoo board members, and Harwood. And he said, hey, why don't we do something like this in Jacksonville? And the other reason he approached Ann was because she's also a Florida Audubon board member. So the idea came from Tony to include the Audubon societies. So I immediately jumped on it and called the Audubon the Duval Audubon Society, and they were all for it. They had actually been trying to, or thinking of ways to try to get into doing a Lights Out in Jacksonville for a couple of years. So it just worked out pretty good. And then we asked St. John's to help us and to join us at. So that's basically how we started. One of the reasons for us starting this is because, as you can see here, there's the four flyways that we have in North America here. And the Atlantic is the one that we get to see birds from. And with Jacksonville, the population of Jacksonville, we're the second most populated area on that flyway on the coast. So we felt it was pretty important. And there's no other Lights Out initiatives in Florida at this time. Though I'll do a caveat. Orlando might start one, and Miami is discussing starting one. So there might be more coming in Florida. So some of the birds that we have here in Northeast Florida, you all probably know this kind of stuff anyways. We've got our year-round birds, like our cardinals and our mockingbirds. We got the birds, the snowbirds, I guess you could say. They come down to Jacksonville in the winter, like the black and white and the yellow runt. And then there's others that just fly through. I shouldn't have the robin there, I guess. And then there's the ones that come for breeding. And then they go back to South America. So the information that we use to determine the amount of birds that come through, actually Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a program called Birdcast. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's basically made to to show visually what is happening at night. So here's a shot from this past week on the 8th of September. And you can see there's not much on the East Coast yet. Our migration is just barely started. Not really started, but you see in the Midwest there, those colors are bright. There's more birds coming through. They're estimating 269 million birds in flight that night. So it's a lot of birds. And then we go look at last October. Here's an example of when we started getting busy. So these brighter colors are showing the large number of birds coming through. And from our surveys, the correlation was almost dead on. That's when we had this bright yellow is when we saw the most birds. I mean, we'd get still birds when it was some of the lighter colors, but the number of birds seen on one night were definitely correlated with the brightness. So basically, like Lisa was saying, we have millions of birds migrating, but the songbirds migrate at night, and they use the stars and such to collect it, to navigate, and they don't really like to migrate during the day. The numbers are down. They're usually staying in trees or foraging. The theory is that this protects them from collectors, and it also helps with the heat. They don't have to deal with flying hundreds of miles in the hot time of the day. So this is our beautiful skyline at Jacksonville. But you can see there's a lot of light there that we need to try to diminish. And actually, I'll get back to the picture that shows the night lights, the map. But this is a picture. This is a map of all the lights out initiatives right now. And I don't know if I mentioned National Audubon Society started the Lights Out initiative about 30 years or so ago, and it's just been growing. Some places like Philadelphia collected. Philadelphia started when they had happened at the worst time. So they had low cloud cover, high migration rate, lots of light, and they found the following day like thousands of birds, over 1,000 birds, just in one night. So that tragic events actually led to Lights Out Philadelphia, and they have already, with the publicity from the event, they have been able to get buildings signed on and agreeing to turn their lights out during migration. So here's kind of what I was saying, that Jacksonville is this bright dot right here in the Northeast Florida. So these birds coming up, they just get confused by that, and then they come down. They come down to the green spaces that we all like to have in our cities. We don't want to just have hardscape everywhere. So we plant trees and things to make things nice Unfortunately, that's where your birds are going to come down to because the lights bring them down, and they're either tired from flying around or they're just brought down by the lights. And then in the morning, they go to fly off after they've rested, and they fly into buildings that just really the reflected glass. Um, they think they're flying into the sky, and it's actually the reflection of the sky from the glass. So in Jacksonville, when we're lights out Northeast Florida, we started last fall. We worked this out. We did the 4 routes. We started out with 5 routes. We cut one route out and have further modified those 4 routes from this past spring to this fall. So we have let's see what that is. That's a sample route. It doesn't show much on that picture. It's kind of small. And then the this page here shows the buildings. So this is what the volunteers will go out with. They'll go out with a map, and it'll have the building numbers, and then a page with the buildings themselves. So what we do is we'll walk around each building and record any dead birds that we find or stun birds. So the volunteers are the backbone of this project. I think we're shooting for 32 volunteers. Excuse me. And I think we're 3 short because we want to do each of those 4 routes. We want to do them 4 days a week. So if we try to put 2 people on each route. That way it's a little safer because the volunteers have to go out. I should say we have to go out at right at dawn and try to walk these routes before the city life gets going and before the building custodians clean up any dead birds. So we need to walk around. So what the volunteers do is they'll like this little corner in this building is a good spot that we found a couple birds. This volunteer was looking. I don't think there's a bird in that picture, but then the volunteer will take a picture of the bird, collect it in the plastic bag, and we'll fill out a little form that goes with it. And then those carcasses come to me at the zoo here, and I collect them in the freezer, and then we have this collaboration with the Florida Museum where we send all the birds, all the carcasses that we find. So these are some of the birds we found this past spring, with ovenbird here in the center being the most prominent. But the beautiful indigo bunting, that was a shame. I'm sure that sounds kind of prejudiced though. Sorry. And here's a snapshot of the species. Collected. It got more than we had. These are the ones that were sent to the Florida Museum. We also we had a duck in there. I'm not sure why it's not in that picture. I know. But it was interesting finding collected. Thanks, Bill. Collected. It was interesting finding a tern and a duck. I think it was a scaup. But the most prominent species we found were the ovenbirds. Like 2/3 of all the birds we found were ovenbirds, including stun ones. Not all of the ovenbirds perished, but as you might see in that article that I attached the link to, I mentioned in there that looking at data from other lights out organizations, most the most the top 5 birds, 4 or maybe all 5 of them, at least 4 of the top 5 birds are ground or low story birds. So the theory that has been put out there is that these birds, because the ovenbirds naturally like to spend time on the ground. Other birds that are in the top 5 spend time in the bushes or whatnot. So the theory is that when they come down, they don't just come down to the top of a tree. They come all the way down to the ground where they like or prefer to be. So when they take off in the morning, again, just to remind you that they're coming down because of bright lights. So when they come down so far down to the ground that when they fly up, they have more glasscape, more glass that they have to avoid, which of course birds can't see glass. So it makes it really tough, especially when it reflects the green space that they're coming from or the sky. So it seems like the ground dwelling birds are more at risk. So when we do ask for volunteers, we just ask them to go to Duval Audubon and then go to conservation drop downs, select the Northeast Florida, Lights Out Northeast Florida, and then click on the link. And then our collected volunteer coordinator, Caroline, will get back to whoever applies. And again, the night sky it's beautiful. The skyline is gorgeous, especially reflected off the river like that. It's just unfortunate that during migration, it is harmful to the birds. And it's not just buildings that we have to worry about. We have to talk to residents because residential bird strikes from lights is about 50% they're finding. So about half of all the window strikes are happening in residential areas. So our plan is not to just talk to the building managers and get them to shut down their lights during migration. And actually, they only have to shut it down from 11 at night to 5 in the morning. If they turn the non-essential lights off, same with residents. If everybody just turns their lights off during that period, don't leave your floodlights on or hook them up to motion sensors so that they only come on when they're needed. And make sure, the other thing is you want to make sure all light, like if you've got a porch light, is shielded down so that you don't waste light that goes up into the sky and it just becomes more light pollution. Collected. So what I think I've gone through this. Is it collected? Well, no, actually, I haven't gone through all of this, but the things you can do is you can join us and help us collect data. You can turn your lights out or draw the blinds. Let's see. Collected and make sure your lights are pointing down, shielded so they don't flood up. Put timers or motion sensors, and then encourage your local businesses to do the same thing. And then if you're willing to and wanting to, please share our messages, graphics with anybody, friends, family. It doesn't matter where they're from, not even Jacksonville. I mean, this is collected a national, it's a world problem. They're finding light pollution is affecting birds all over the world. I think there was one estimate that collected we kill about a billion birds. It's anywhere from 200 million to a billion birds a year to glass strikes. Now that might not all be due to light pollution, but it's still, that's part of the problem. Collected. I think that's it. And let me look and see if there's another slide. Oh, so how do I stop share? Okay. So, yes.
A lot of you are on mute right now. If you'd like to ask Mike a question, unmute yourself and ask your question.
And if anything you ask or say jogs something that I might have forgotten, I will gladly fill in.
Question, Mike, are you getting much cooperation from your big building owners here in Jacksonville?
That's a good question. We were advised by some longstanding Lights Out organizations that we first year, maybe even the first 2 years, is to collect the data. And then once we have the data and we know where the issues might be, that's when we go and we try to approach the building owner. So we technically we haven't really done that. We've talked to some people that we might use as connections to some buildings, but we have not yet really approached the buildings yet, managers. But that's probably what we're going to do next year.
Just out of curiosity, and then Bill, I think, has a question, is when you were showing the downtown, the bridges were lighted up as well. Do those pose a problem, or is it mainly your buildings with reflective glass?
Well, the glass is what kills the birds. But yes, any light that's reflected up into the sky causes a problem. So that's the street lights, that's the bridge lights, anything. But there are ways to mitigate that. You can use different frequency lights, more towards the red end of the light spectrum instead of the blue end. Like white light is not just white light. It's somewhere on the color spectrum. The cheaper type of light is towards the blue spectrum, which unfortunately is worse for the birds. It confuses them. It affects their migration more. If you get towards the red end of the white light spectrum, it doesn't affect them as much. So there are things that we can do, because what we want to do collected is maybe next year, and we're going to try to start talking with the building managers, but we're also going to start looking at possible, I wouldn't say legislation, but look at the city and see what we can do to influence things going forward. Other cities have done it. Actually, New York has done something that's pretty incredible, that they have to, all new buildings have to be bird friendly or bird safe. That includes a little more than what we're going for, which is the bird safe glass. But eventually it would be nice if we got to that point too. Collected.
Bill, you had a question.
Yeah, Mike, what are the dates of the migratory periods? How do you define them?
This year, for this fall, we're looking at the 16th of September through the middle of November. Collected.
Okay. And then in the spring?
Spring is collected March and April.
Okay.
I think we started end of February and went through halfway through May. I think we increased it.
Okay. And just for what I understand about what you're saying, that if we turned our lights off, the birds would just keep flying till they saw the sunrise or something, and then they know, okay, now it's time to go down.
Yes.
Rest a little bit on this branch, and then when they take off, it's still light. So, are you saying then they don't collide as much, or collide at all, or what?
No. The thing is, when the city lights bring them down, they bring them down into a dangerous area, which is beside the greenscape, beside the glass buildings that has all the light in the first place.
Yeah.
So if a bird traveling and just coincidentally the sun's coming up, say Jacksonville was black, and the birds came down in Jacksonville, they would still have the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things is they do fly around when they're confused by the light, and this tires them out, uses up energy, and it messes up their flight schedule because they tend to take off in the morning when they're naturally supposed to be resting at that time. Collected.
I still don't understand what good it does to turn out the lights. I'm sorry.
Well, it's
As far as bird collisions, I mean, I've got birds in my yard and always fly into my windows. I mean, particularly territorial birds like bluebirds and things like that. So the only thing I can do is take down the bluebird houses till they go away.
No, see, there's a difference between the resident birds and migrating birds. That's a different issue that we should try to rectify too. You might want to look into let me see if I can never pronounce it right. I think it's Ecopedian. What did I do? Collected. No,
I hear you.
Still with us.
shoot. I think I shared. Okay.
No,
No,
we
you're
still,
fine.
we still see you. Everything's good.
Okay. All right. I clicked on something. There is this gentleman, this scientist came up with using parachute cords, and you just hang them in front of your glass 4 inches apart.
Yeah.
They're not attached except at the top, so they can move.
Right.
But they very minor inconvenience, and you're actually, if you put them up, they you basically learn, your eyes learn to not focus on them. So it's not really
Yeah. Well, I've heard of all those things, you know, as far as
yeah, and then
anytime collisions, and you know, I cover it with newspaper. I've done all kinds of things. So, but I'm just saying that I don't get what the light has to do with
well, it's
increased collisions. I don't see how that works.
it's definitely correlated to it. They've done plenty of studies on it. Like I said, this has been around for 30 plus years, and I would suggest you go to American Bird Conservancy, ABC.
Okay.
They have some pretty good information. They're pretty science based.
Okay.
You should be able to learn some more.
Okay. And then what other aspects or impacts on migration do lights cause besides collision, if any?
Well,
I
there's
just thought that it changes their patterns and their paths.
well, no, like if they're coming up and they see the bright spot of Jacksonville, instead of flying north, continuing north, they're flying around in Jacksonville where they can fly so bad. I mean, fly so much that they fall down from being flying too much. Tired, and then they can get taken by cats. Even if they don't hit a window, they could be on the ground and get taken by feral cats. The other thing is, when they're flying north, they need to spend all that energy going north. Or when they're flying south, they don't need to spend time here when they should be going further down. Collected.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then you mentioned cats. That's my last question. How would you compare the risk of feral cats or the impact of feral cats on bird deaths to these
feral
collisions, which are worse.
feral cats are worse.
That's what I think too.
If I could, with a magic wand, get rid of all the feral cats, I think it would be a better place for birds and
Yeah.
reptiles and mammals.
Can we do that as our next campaign and really cause controversy?
Yes, that's unfortunately that's a very emotional topic.
You're not going there, right?
Not yet. We'll see.
All right, I'll mute again and let someone else talk.
All right, we've got Diane Battle, I think, has her hand up. Diane, unmute yourself.
Okay, our Barbara has been a little bit longer. I don't know if you're, if we're taking
Okay.
turns, but
All right,
I mean,
I didn't know that. I apologize. Why don't we go with Barbara Gubbett since she's had her
and
hand up the longest?
you can come back to me. I'm happy.
All right, Barbara.
I don't think one way or the other. I just was really going to, number one, point out what Carolyn Antman with the Duval Audubon Society put in the chat about you can put on window
Collected-
treatments on your windows if you're having problems with birds flying into your, the birds that live here flying into your windows. But it's my understanding, and I'm sure Mike knows a lot more than I do, but being a friend of Carolyn's and a member of the Duval Audubon Society, is that all the light is really disorienting for the birds. And they've been, the people have been getting up very early in the morning and walking around downtown Jacksonville, have found, any number of dead or stunned birds on the sidewalks beside our building. So we know it's happening. And it's such a simple thing to, use different bulbs or turn bulbs off. And I know that Duval Audubon is a partner with the Riverfront Parks Now Coalition, just as we are. And Carolyn and others who are participating in that have made a real point with Riverfront Parks Now. And I think we need to do it as well, because often there are these great ideas for how we can make downtown Jacksonville and the river, more jazzy and exciting. And it frequently involves putting up lights at night. And the last thing we want to have happen is putting up lights at night, because it may seem like it's jazzy, but it's not good for birds. And we are, ecotourism is big with us. When you think about all the marshes and the national parks and things that we have. So I think we need to be, speak out more loudly on this topic. We're not asking for anything dramatic to happen, 24/7, 365 days a year. That would be nice. But during the bird migration, and by the way, it's already started because I was out birding on Saturday and we saw a whole bunch of warblers. That we need to persuade the powers that be, whether it be in private industry or on the city government or county commission, that it's to our benefit and that of ecotourism and encouraging birders to come to the Northeast Florida area, that we participate in Lights Out and encourage people to modify outdoor lighting and bright indoor lighting during the 2 seasonal migrations.
Well, I agree with you. And Carolyn has been invaluable to Lights Out Northeast Florida. If it wasn't for her and her work with the volunteers, we wouldn't be as far as we've gotten already. But I agree. We need to turn lights out, not just for birds. There's all kinds of other animals, even humans. Our circadian cycles get thrown off by too much light. It's not good to have collected as much light as we have around here at night. If we shade our windows and sleep, we're probably fine. But all those other animals out there, sea turtles. You see all the work that they've done along the coast, turning lights out at certain times just for the sea turtles. They found that coral reefs that are close to the shore, the fish in the in the water. I mean, the lights penetrate and it messes them up. It's light pollution is worse than people can imagine. It's not good, and it's not going to be easy to get fixed either.
Why don't we let Diane ask her question? Diane, unmute yourself.
Okay, and I have a comment actually, and living more down towards St. Augustine, I think that the beachfront properties have been pretty successful in implementing turtle safe lights, which probably would have the same effect for the birds. I'm not a bird expert, but and the thing of it is you're implementing these things, especially during migration times. This is not like the St. Augustine Night of Lights has to go dark, which would be a tragedy. So this is just something. This is an accommodation for a particular set of species at a particular time of year. And by the way, photoperiodicity adversely affects plants. So you can just lump us all in there. And turtle safe lights probably would not have the same deleterious effect on the plants that the higher frequencies do. But I just want to throw something in here because my last master naturalist class had this discussion, not in defense of feral cats, but you see, to actually collect the data on what feral cats are doing is impossible, quite frankly. Now, there's a lot of studies that have been done on regular cats, and we know our house cats do take their share, even though they're not hungry. But, rather than, I think, maligning these feral cats, we do much, much better to try to get the ones at least that are still fertile, not euthanized, but make them infertile, and you can over time decrease the population. And you can't. I looked up this. I guess it's a fact that cats tend to attack mammals more than they do birds. So if you have feral cats that are keeping your rat, just like Farmer Brown used to keep the cats out in the barn to take care of the mice, they do some good things too. So, we're the ones to blame for the feral cats, but it's a problem. Yeah, it's a problem that we don't have hard numbers on. And, quite frankly, addressing the root of the problem is the cats having a better lifestyle, not so populated. I think that's a better way to go. And Bill, I'll get up there toe to toe with you because, we can't just blame one species. We're having insect crashes. And so I'm just gonna stop there because insect populations are going down phenomenally. So we'll take a look at the whole thing and maybe we could have a series of discussions on this because that bugs rule, So thank you for the time.
Okay. Other questions for Mike?
Collected.
I know there have to be questions out there. Well, if not, Mike, this was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure that, and as you might have gathered, quite a few of our members are Audubon Society members as well. So I'm sure that a lot of the people here tonight who are part of the Sierra Club are hopefully involved in your initiative. So I would say keep sharing information with us. We can post it on our website and our social media sites as well so that we can create broader awareness among our members. And also we're fortunate to have a lot of master naturalists, and the one leading our group tonight is our master naturalist. So we've got several of them. We're very fortunate. Now, Barbara, is your hand up again?
Yes, it is. Can I suggest that I don't know whether we ask Mike or Carolyn Antman or Lisa does it, but I think we need to put an article in our newsletter about the program. I know that the Carolyn and the Duval Audubon Society want volunteers who are willing to get up really, really early. I told them now I'm retired, I'm not going to do that, but I'm sure there are other people who are willing. I know some retired people say, "Oh, I always get up at 5:30, and I'm still getting up at 5:30." And I'm thinking one of the pleasures of being retired is I don't have to get up at 5:30. But I think they want
It's only one day a week.
they want volunteers. They want help, and I think we should even consider as a Sierra Club somehow endorsing the program and, putting a link up on our website to wherever it is that Zoo or Duval Audubon's website. I mean, this is something that is an environmental issue that the Sierra Club should be part of, it seems to me. So I realize I'm suggesting things that lots of other people can do, but I feel sure there is an article that somebody could plagiarize quite easily to put in our newsletter, and requests for volunteers could be put on our website and our newsletter, and we could have a link so that people would know that this is something we're interested in as well. So.
Okay, well,
Logan, can I mention a couple of things in the chat?
certainly.
I'm just curious about becoming a dark sky city. Do you know of any initiatives there in that vein? Because that would sure cover this too.
Yes, it would. Dark Sky City would be a nice thing to do. Talk to them a couple of times, to the Orlando chapter of Dark Sky. I don't see any big city becoming a dark sky city. It's just too hard. I mean, I'd love to see it. I don't have the time to work on that. We may get closer to it once we get a year or two into this. But I can't foresee Jacksonville ever becoming a dark sky city. That's just the pessimist in me, I guess.
And the realist, I'm afraid.
Maybe that's.
And then there was a comment from Carolyn Antman that said, according to Sibley, a bird expert, window strikes is the ¡1 killer of birds. That's our second.
Sorry about that, Carolyn.
Yeah, for all the cat lovers, they're feeling a little better. Go ahead.
Well, Carolyn has her hand up, but go ahead, Carolyn.
Collected.
Well, okay, I did have to look up who was first and who was second on the window strikes. But what I wanted to say is that I have written articles for Duval Audubon that have gone into our newsletter that I would be glad to share with you so that you don't have to technically plagiarize. I give my permission.
Oh, Carolyn, would you send that to me?
Okay, I can do that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Okay.
A good resource, as I mentioned to Bill, for bird strikes, window strikes, is American Bird Conservancy. They do studies, they do research. They actually built a tunnel where they have birds fly towards, it's all dark, and they fly towards a window. They'll have two choices. One will be one with window treatments, and one will just be a window. And they have discovered that there's a 4:2, it's called a 4x2 measurement that works best for birds. So if it's a vertical line, it needs to be 4 inches, no more than 4 inches apart. If it's a horizontal line, it needs to be no more than 2 inches apart. And the reason for this is that birds, when they fly, they they know their wings aren't going to fit through a 4-inch opening, or same with when they're horizontal. If it's 2 inches, most are not going to try to fly through that. So they've done a ton of research on that. So if you go to, there's some websites out there that have the silhouettes that you put on your window, that they will work to a certain extent, but they don't fit the 4-2 model unless you put them close together, so where the spaces are, they're not more than 4 inches apart, or 2 inches apart horizontally. So I highly recommend looking at American Bird Conservancy. They do a lot of work for birds, and a lot of research, and they've got some good stuff on their website.
Lisa, were there any other things in the chat?
You've just gotten a lot of comments about this being great information. Thank you. Somebody who said they had to leave early and they hated to do it, but had to go. And then Diane Battle adds, is anybody familiar with Doug Tallamy and his advocacy for insects? If people would stop using broad spectrum pesticides, that would help.
I agree.
And that's so true. Doug Tallamy, his book, Bringing Nature Home, is very.
Well, he's one of your favorites, isn't he?
Yeah, you know that.
Okay. Thank you all for coming tonight. This has been a wonderful presentation, and thanks to Mike. We certainly do appreciate it. It's always good to get good, valuable, informative information so that we come out of it feeling like we really learned something. So thank you very much, Mike, and thank you all for coming, and hope you'll be at our next educational program as well.